I am gonna call the meeting to order because we do have quorum. We have a good set of participants. I think we're probably expecting a few others as well. But I do want to be respectful of time because the agenda is actually probably, sorry, I'm jumping around. The agenda is probably the most packed that we've had since the beginning of COVID. So that's maybe a sign of the changing tides, I guess I would say. Um, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's 8:02 p.m. And I'm sure we'll get a few other attendees. I know we're expecting a few others. So the first thing that I wanted to start off to talk about is a nature walk. And this is Christiana's agenda item, and maybe I could just provide a brief summary for people who weren't on her email. I actually can't recall exactly who you spoke to, but I know it's an ex-resident of Randolph Hills, and I'll let you speak in a sec, Christiana. But we had talked about this back in February about the concept of having a nature walk in the community while there are still restrictions on certain activities, especially as they relate to indoor activities. So with that, I'm going to mute myself. And Christiana, do you want to provide some context and sort of next steps?
Sure. I think most of you were at the February meeting, and I think most of you, except for Andrea, maybe got my email. So I had reached out to Michelle Koenig. She used to live down on Ashley, where Bolingbrook comes in, and had hosted a whole bunch of our caroling outings too, and so just lovely. So I've just been a little bit in touch with her. Her son, Paul, is now a junior in high school, by the way. So just how time flies. She works for the Nature Conservancy for a good number of years already. And I can't really speak to the rest of her expertise, but I had been in touch with her about what we might want to do, getting together, let's say, right where that baseball field is, where the little footbridge goes over the creek. And we would start there on a Saturday morning, family and children, and of course, grown-ups being responsible for their own kids. If anybody goes in the water, it's not her responsibility. No. And she had suggested some things that she from the Audubon Society, like there is an app you can get on your cell phone that has to do with the bird calls, or because very often you hear birds more than you can see them, and that's all cool, and I can probably put that into an article. But basically, we really want to get away from the screen time and just be there, and she can give quite some information on the ecology, on the nature, what trees we have, and then how to be quiet and just let the sounds come, and starting to identify bird calls. And then we would go for a walk and start identifying things, and have it pretty free flowing. Now I hadn't, she and I had not talked about how the restrictions would be outdoors. Of course, we would all still be social distancing, which should be relatively easy, and having our masks. But if we're actually in the park or on that forest path, if we actually need a permit, I do not know. I hope we will not have to be restricted to 25 people. That would be 3 families, and that's it, or 5. But maybe by that time, it's going to be already 50. And I don't expect that we would have more than 50 people anyway. I mean, when did we ever have for an RCA event more than 50? I mean, even on a community day or the races, we didn't have more. So that was our impression. And if Josh, who had sent me an email, thinks we really should look into whether we would be constrained as to the numbers. She had suggested 2 dates. It's a Saturday before Memorial Day, May 22nd, and as a rain day, the Saturday after Memorial Day, which would be June 5th. So that's still a ways out, and hopefully we'll be in better situation by then. So what do you think? And what should I ask Michelle?
The question I would have for Michelle would be, really regarding the number of people that it's feasible to hear what she may have to say on the walk. That's kind of my concern, how the logistics would work with that, with 50 people spread out at 6 feet apart. I don't know. She might have to have a bullhorn, but maybe, I don't know.
That would be counterproductive to the birds.
For sure. I mean, the idea, I love the idea, and I think the timing is probably good too. You know, we should have a lot more vaccines, and et cetera, et cetera. Sounds like a great idea. I just wonder how many people realistically can really do this deal.
Well, Josh had suggested that we have something like a sign-up list and then have a cutoff. You know, if we know one grown-up comes with 3 kids or 2 grown-ups come with 2 kids or so, that we get a pretty good tally. And people will also peel off when kids get bored, they'll just leave, you know.
Right.
So, but I think probably 50 is probably a good top number anyway, including the children. And, you know, she won't be yelling like, imagine we're going in Venice with an umbrella and everybody else, the tourist guide. She will probably say a couple of things up front. And then once in a while we might stop and say, do you hear this? Or then look up here, or look at this tree, and this kind of bark is this way and that kind of bark is there, or do you know these leaves? So it will be more like with a very knowledgeable person who can just point out things to you that you always walk by. I think that would be a beautiful example that then any parent or anyone else can take to for future nature walks, to go, oh yeah, let's pay attention to the cinquefoils and the this and that, yeah, and the rufous-headed towhee and whatever. Yeah, so yeah, okay. Anything else?
The only thing that I'll say is that I already had some familiarity with the latest executive order because of an agenda item that we'll talk about a little bit later. But I did double check it again, and the way, and you know, I'm just going to preface this by saying I am not an attorney, but the way that I've read the executive order, the current one, is that outdoor gatherings are still limited to 25 people or less. And you know, you're right about May being pretty far away. I don't have a crystal ball about what Elrich is going to do, and Elrich is really in consultation with Dr. I think Gale is his name. They're really running point on this. I mean, Hogan to some degree has some control of what happens, but local jurisdictions still get a lot of authority in terms of what they can do, and so Montgomery County has been the most restrictive. I mean, I love this idea, and you know what Andre said. I don't know what the other board members think, but I think what Andre said, you know, forget the COVID restrictions for a moment. Like beyond 25 people, it might be hard for Michelle to talk. So I mean, other things that I thought about was, you know, like if the ideal, or if the proposal was for a 2-hour gathering, for example, is there a way to split it up into 2 different groups, and have Michelle spend time with 25 people once, and those people go off and frolic in the woods by themselves, and then a new group of 25 people come in. So I think that's one way that we could maybe separate these into not just one gathering of 50 people all at the same time. But just in general, I mean, I love the idea, and I really appreciate the initiative.
And then we have the early birds who make it for the 9 o'clock, and we have the other birds who don't get the worm but get something else, you know. That's a good idea. I like that.
That would work, and I guess we would call it out in the next Echo.
Yeah, we have enough time this way that I can write an article.
You know, we start talking about it, because I agree. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. It would be just then up to you as a board also to say where and who should people respond to. Do we have an RCA email that we should use? Or I'm always happy, just like with the caroling, to just volunteer my own email. and keep my spreadsheet like I always used to with the other thing. What would you be more comfortable with?
The latter sounds very kind of you and the simplest way to do it.
I have no problem with it.
Thank you.
And I can also see if there's any educational material. I'm sure that the Conservancy, Nature Conservancy has something, but let's say if there's something like coloring books or information book, would it be possible for or would you, it's just coming to me now, would the board be making available like $50 that I could buy something like notepads or coloring books or so? What do you think of that?
Well, I would think that that would be fine. I mean, I don't necessarily know how much of a community day we're going to be having and how much money we would want for those things. I mean, obviously a lot of those things would take up money, but I really don't know this year how much that is really going to be spent. Obviously our donations are down this year, but even still, I mean, certainly we could spend $50 or $100, I think, and not have a problem with that. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I mean, finance wise, that should be fine.
Yeah, maybe we can take two really quick votes here, and we can do it just by negatives or abstentions. Is anyone opposed to having this event? Okay, and the second vote is anyone opposed to designating, let's just call it $50 for now, and Christiana, if it ends up being more or something, we can talk again. But is anyone opposed to that dollar value?
Can I pipe in for a second?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I know some things that we've been to in the past, some organizations have outreach materials that they give. So that might be, they might have things that they would give us to use too.
I'm sure, and I'll make sure I get that from her.
Just as,
Yeah.
I was banking on that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's just if there's something a little bit more, or even if we get all the outreach material free, but if I can get little pads and a pen that we can give out to every kid to, then collect a leaf and take it home, just something like that. And we should also then, maybe it would be a good idea to have a little table at the beginning with our big bucket, please donate to the RCA. And we get a couple more people to give us some more money there. We can always do that, right?
Yeah.
That sounds good. And I think I've been designated as a timekeeper, so we need to wrap up on this. And I think that would the ball now would be in Christiana's court to write the article and circulate it for the next Echo. Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. So we finished Nature Walk. On to Aftercare bidding process at Veersmill Elementary. So I believe that Nell had spoken with you, Andy, already about that, and I can turn it over to you.
Yeah, she gave me just a list of things to report to you. Do you want me to just speak to that point, or do you want me to go through the whole thing?
I would just say, like, we probably have about 7 to 8 minutes to talk about each topic. And so I can start off just briefly that Nell specifically has been very concerned about more like due process issues in the aftercare bidding process at our local elementary school. And so she was proposing to have an update tonight with respect to that bidding process.
Yeah. And what she asked me on that was that regarding the aftercare bid process at Veersmill Elementary, is the RCA still postured to send a letter of support for the bid process for a new aftercare provider, to be granted to Veersmill Elementary? And that letter would be sent to William Pullman, childcare manager at Community Use of Public Facilities, with copies to respective council members. And if so, she is working on a draft of a letter at this time. And that's
it.
And that's it. Yeah. And and just so if I know some people, but Andrea Jones, and I work over at Veersmill. And I've been there for about 22 years or so.
That's great. I mean, I actually don't know if anyone on the board has a child at Veersmill. We're due there in the fall, personally. Can you, like, Nell's talked about this a lot, but we haven't really gotten the full picture. Like, I know that Global is the current provider over there, and that there are probably a handful of providers throughout the county who run aftercare programs as, like, by contract with MCPS. Could you talk a little bit about, exactly what happened and what the concern is?
I'm not, I try and walk a fine line. I'm not sure of specifics, but I know that with some people, there have been concerns with procedures or that have had, things procedurally within the childcare. I know we started off with Bright Eyes having all of our childcare. And then they changed it to be they needed a certification that they didn't currently have. When I talked to them last year before we left school, this had come up again. And one of the women over there was telling me that they had been working on getting that recertification so that they could have aftercare and before care. So, and I just, from my aspect of it, I know of parents that have preferred other daycare to Global. So I'm trying to, I know what I like and I don't like. I'm not sure how much of my personal opinion I should say because I do work there.
Well,
If you can tell me what, I can try to speak to what you want. I'm not sure. She didn't give me anything specific to say about.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Colby. I forgot about you. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I do have or have had and will have my kids at Veersmill until the end of the 5th grade. And I mean, personally, I have not had any issues with Global at all. I believe when I spoke with Nell about it, she was concerned. I mean, she did have actual issues with Global and the running of Global and things like that from what I understand. Now, again, I don't want to put words in her mouth. And she said that there are other providers out there that provide a lot better services. And that her main concern, though, also was that there didn't seem to be this open process for getting people vetted to be able to try to become the child care provider at Veersmill, and somehow the process wasn't working. So Global just kept getting it, and it wasn't being open to other people. I have been to I've used Kids After Hours and stuff as well. They're pretty good as well. Global is a lot less expensive than what I've seen elsewhere. So for maybe certain members of the community, depending on whether or not, I mean, there may be other ones that are better, but if they're a lot more expensive, unfortunately, there may not be availability to go to those other ones, even if they are better. So it just depends on what we're looking for, because if better is more expensive, that may work for some, but not others. And then if it's not as good, but cheaper, then again, that's not going to benefit everybody either. So I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I haven't had any issues with Global. They've been very helpful with me and my kids, and I have a very kind of weird situation because they don't actually go to Veersmill. They take the bus back and forth, and they have to get them on the bus. They have to take them off the bus, and so they, anyways, they've been very good with me. And but again, that's just one person's opinion, right? So, but I think it's part of the process isn't open for other people to try to get that. So I think she was looking to try to see if they could open up the process. Everybody can vet. And if we get Global, we get Global. And if we get somebody else, well, we get someone else.
I think that RCA could certainly say, hey, we'd like to have, as a community, we'd like to have input. We'd like this to be an open process. I don't think we should be jumping in and saying Global's got to go, because I think that is problematic. But I do think that I would be open to a letter saying, hey, this is our local school. We'd like to know what's going on.
And, from my personal, just in general, I know and I don't know what the situation is now. I know when it was just Bright Eyes, because I did used to be friendly with Diana, who was the person that started Bright Eyes. They did used to be able to subsidize if, for income, if people had a low income, but they needed to have daycare, there were subsidies for that through the county or through someplace. I don't know if that still exists or not. But I think there's a contingent of people that would like to see it be what is offered by other people versus, so that there is there are more choices or options.
I think this
I think
is
that was
actually
part of it.
this is a pretty complicated issue. There may be actual bylaws of some sort that are governing the bidding process for the school. I'm a little unclear as to the board's role here, other than as what was suggested would be a letter asking to be kept in the loop. I think that's as far as we can go.
Yeah. And well, her wording is specifically, if we're still postured to send a letter of support for a bid process for a new aftercare provider to be granted, because I know it was that time in the process, I believe, prior to COVID. So I would think it might still be in that loop where it is time. I can't remember if it's a 2-year or a 3-year contract, but we were at that point in time.
So in other words, we're looking to be to confirm that there would be a bidding process going forward, or to recommend one. Perhaps you could draft a letter to that effect, and the board would look at it and okay it.
Okay.
Modify
Yeah, I
it.
can let her know. Yeah, and I mean that's what she has down here. It's just a couple lines of print, but it's just I think that I think her idea was that, not to put words in her mouth, but I think her idea was that since we are a big part of Veersmill, to have our support behind having the bidding process take place. Not to say that somebody should or should not be getting the bid, but just that we might be supporting that there is a bidding process.
Yeah, I mean, historically, the RCA has had an education committee chair. We haven't had a committee chair in the last few years. So number one, I'll put a plug in for that. But, we've always, going back to the 50s, from what I can tell, we've engaged with the school system, on behalf of our community interests. So, but I agree with what I've heard so far that, we really, the letter needs to be focused on due process and just the opportunity for comment from the community. And because there are a lot of people in our neighborhood, and some of them might really like global and some of them might not. And, I guess the point is that all of those people deserve to be heard if they'd like to voice their opinion. So I think I think what I'm hearing is that we support that effort. And I think we'll just have to be careful in the letter to make sure that we're supporting, input from our community and not really trying to poo-poo any particular company.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Just say, we understand that we were under the impression that there's a bidding process, and we, want to know where the bidding process is, when the next one's happening, and that we are informed that, it moves forward as should, and then just leave it at that.
Colby, you want to take a crack at the letter?
Well,
sir, yeah.
I think Nell is actually already.
I think Nell.
Or
Yeah.
you could talk to Nell about it and maybe collaborate on it.
Yeah.
Yes, she definitely knows a lot more about it than I do. I can certainly talk to Nell.
I think we just need to let Nell draft the letter and ask us that we look at it before it goes anywhere.
Sounds good. Okay, Josh, take it away.
All right, so Civic Green cleanup. So this is my agenda item. So I've driven past there a few times recently, or walked past, and there were two things that I thought that we might need to take action on early this spring. Number one, the flags that we put up have been severely kissed by the sun, and there are very few left. And I just number one, I wonder if it's time to take those stakes and flags down. And then the second item is that the Morris column is looking pretty rough. And so I don't know if we want to try to refurbish it in some way, or, you know, sort of what the next steps are. But I think one of the panels is actually separated in some way. So it's I think we do need to think about what to do in the next, you know, let's call it 6 to 8 weeks. Has anyone else driven past or walked past?
Yeah, I did notice that the column was looking pretty ratty.
Can I add the flags too? Those flags were meant to be kind of temporary, but then everybody kind of liked them. But I don't know if they're, the way I put them up was, you know, meant to really last as long as it has. So, I mean, I think in general, I mean, obviously the maintenance of the grass and everything is done by the landlord, but I think along with the Morris column and some of the furniture, we just need to, you know, either, I think, take them up or redo them. I think the Morris column probably his time has just probably come. But
should we pick a date? Put a date on the calendar, maybe?
Something warmer. When's it going to get warm again?
Yeah.
Actually, next week is in the 60s.
Yeah, good.
I can't do next week, but
Well,
but
maybe
yeah,
April, because then we can put it in the Echo. You know, there's an outdoor activity. Anybody wants to come out to help out? You know, April, and that when is what? That's okay. That's one of the next agenda items. March Echo copy deadline. So, so there's something to get in there, so to let people know, because that's a community event too, in one way. So April or May, you know, it should be warm by the end of April.
Yeah, I would suggest April, because the weather's going to get nice. People will probably take food over from the food truck and eat there. We might as well get it looking as good as we can as soon as we can.
Mm-hmm.
We could also talk to Alan, see whether we might be able to get some improvements out of him. I don't think we ought to hesitate on a yearly basis to ask, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Say, what's this year's upgrade going to be?
I still think it might not be bad to get a group down there, look at it together, and see what we think.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can put it in the president's message. The one thing that I want to call I probably won't specify a date, and reason being that, you know, if we put April 15th or something and it ends up raining, I totally do not want to be out there. But
Okay.
yeah.
Hey Josh, why don't we say that if you're interested in being involved, attend the April RCA meeting.
Okay. Email RCA. Yeah, we can maybe what we could do is try to finalize the date within a few days of that meeting, so that we could do it in real time.
It's April 1st. April Fool's Day is the RCA meeting, because that's the first Thursday in April. So that's good. So if we do that and then just say, hey, if everybody's ready this Saturday or the 10th, 17th, or 24th, those are the Saturdays in April. And so I'm assuming a Saturday is the day people would prefer, because people are working during the week. So.
Yeah, I think we also have to be careful with the Morris column, because I once made a comment about it in front of Alan, and his daughter helped assemble. I actually don't recall if Alan also participated. I think maybe both of them did. And so that Morris column we might want to see if it's refurbishable before we automatically think it should be kind of, you know, disposed of. So I think it's near and dear to him.
We can put a cherry bomb in it.
Oh, Christiana.
or a cherry cake. Okay. So next agenda item is also mine, and you know, we've been cleaning up trash around the neighborhood when we can, and one thing that I noticed was you know, on a Monday I drove past the shopping center, specifically the part of the brook right across the way from Goodwill. And then a few hours later, the wind really kicked up, and all of a sudden, there was like a massive amount of trash that had blown to the brook. And my thought is that a lot of it is blow away from the shopping center. And my question to some of the people who have been around longer than me is, has the discussion about blow away trash from the shopping center been discussed with Alan over the years? And if so, kind of like where did we land from those conversations?
To my memory, it's always been a problem, but I don't know if we've ever discussed it.
Ellen always did write us a big check, though. So, so maybe there was a little hesitancy to complain too much. Oh, you're muted. Oh.
I wasn't proposing that we like write a letter or whine. I was trying to think about a solution that would be simple for him, that would work for us too. But the amount of blow away from there is pretty significant, and my guess is that the majority of that little strip of land is like in between Schuylkill and Rocking Horse is just blow away from the shopping center. So if our solution is the Adopt a Road program, that's fine. I think potentially some of the trees that they're planting also might end up capturing some of that stuff, for better or worse.
I mean, I don't doubt that stuff is just blowing across that parking lot, but it's still like, there's just not that many businesses. I mean, there's, was it Modi's bags? I mean, it's not, or just all from the one-stop shop. I don't know where it's all coming from, unless it's all coming, the library has just got all their stuff just dumped out in front. I'm not sure what's going on there.
I mean, yeah, a lot of that stuff washes down from the Pike area.
Yeah, or just park lawn and up there, just like, yeah, you just blows straight across there, and you just notice it blowing across there. But whether it originates from him, it's probably a little more unclear.
Yeah, no, I was referring to stuff that's not in the brook. I'm talking about stuff that's on the grass next to the brook. And my guess is, I would agree with you. I don't think it's from the businesses. My guess is it's from people's cars who come to the shopping center, and something falls out of their car or whatever. Whether it's intentional or not is kind of irrelevant. But my guess is it's blow away from people who come to shop there.
Yeah, it's a big open lot, and the wind just picks up. It's always happened as long as we've talked about it.
Do we know whether or not Alan has any number of no littering signs up? I don't know how much people pay attention to him, but I don't know if he has any of them at all.
I mean, he's been good with having trash cans. I mean, he's got a trash can on the Civic Green. He's got
Right.
trash cans around there. I mean, I don't know if there's a bunch of signs that say no littering, but he does have trash receptacles that are available to people. But.
Not just that, but there's also a gentleman that he pays to go around. I don't know if you guys have seen him with a picker and a bucket, but it's probably a few times per week. So he's doing something about it. He's doing his due diligence. I wasn't proposing an action. I was curious about if we've tried anything in the past and it failed, or anything like that. I was just curious.
Can we take a photograph of the gentleman with the picker and the bucket and write a nice article about him for the Echo? Just appreciating, that someone is there actually more often.
If he's willing.
Yeah, I've never seen him, but when if anybody knows, unless anyone else wants to volunteer, but that's a little article I can write.
If you're able to track him down. I think typically, I'm just trying to place when I've seen him. I think that I've seen him around about 9 a.m. but I I don't know which days, but usually it's
Yeah.
like when I'm dropping off a child.
Uh-huh. So have your camera ready. Okay. You and I, we can talk. So maybe you can help me out with Kronstadt, that I get his name or know when his hours are. Then I'll go out
Okay.
and do that. Okay. I'll do
And
that.
Maddie's not here, but Maddie's new to our neighborhood, and she had reached out to me about sort of how she can contribute. And one of the things that we talked about, I guess it was back in February, was the concept of plogging, which is, you know, picking up trash while you're jogging, picking up litter. And so I think for this month's Echo, she's going to be writing an article actually about plogging. So
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Just to really, the next agenda item, March Echo, the copy deadline, I believe, is next Friday. It's not really a discussion item, but I just wanted to put it on everyone's radar in case you have some journalistic desire to write up something, especially as we get into spring. People, you know, the weather's nice. You know, people are getting vaccinated and getting excited about what the world could look like. So anyway, the next agenda item are community day ideas, and this was Nell's agenda item that she's deferring to Andy. So I'm gonna turn it over to you again, Andy.
I just have to find it on my list. Okay. She has down that regarding Community Day, if held at Randolph Hills Park Gazebo, the benefit would be that families could access Dewey Park as well. And we have a neighborhood resident, Kaylee Folsom, who I think was going, she's on the call. And she lives over by the corner entrance of Randolph Hills Park. And she can speak to her location and the possibility of hosting a food truck or ice cream truck in her driveway or a neighbor's driveway.
Nice.
So if Kaylee's there and wants to elaborate on that.
Are you muted?
Hi, Kaylee, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Hi everyone, sorry, I'm not very good at Zoom. I'll start my video so you can actually see me. Hello. Yes, I was communicating with Nell through email, and she suggested the possibility of needing a place to distribute ice cream. And she said, well, could you talk to your neighbor? And I said, sure, I can do that. I haven't had the opportunity to yet, but if it doesn't work out with him, of course, more than happy to help out with that. I guess that's all I have to say. When would this be?
Yeah, I was just about to ask. So typically, like Music Fest is a May event, and Community Day happens typically in either late September or early October. And so, are we talking about something for this spring or for the fall?
That is a fantastic question. Nell didn't mention any specific dates with me, just the idea, just the possibility of it. I will be moving mid-May, so I'll talk to my neighbor and then let Nell know what he says, just in case. I'm not exactly sure what she has in mind for when she wants this community event to occur, but if it's after May, mid-May, it'll have to be with somebody else that happens.
So is this, help me remember if this was a kind of a follow-on from a conversation at the last meeting that we're trying to, someone wanted to have, you know, some type of vendors come more often into the neighborhood to get people out. Because I don't know if it was necessarily a part of, you know, Community Day or some other established thing. It was, I think it was meant to be in addition to those, but Yeah, so I don't think it would be as late as October. I think the thought was something more regular where ice cream truck can. Is it Kaylee? Did she say ice cream trucks particular, or did she say like any kind of food truck?
She specifically said ice cream.
Okay.
Yeah, she said she was wanting to have some kind of an event in the park, and if she was having trouble getting permits to distribute ice cream, that it would be nice to be able to still do it just using our driveway. And I said, yeah, absolutely, it's no problem.
I wonder if she's talking about us getting ice cream from Costco and distributing it like we have done it at Community Day and at Music Fest in the past. I wonder if she's talking about that rather than a food truck. I mean, both are good ideas, but
that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think in this case she was thinking the cooler full of ice cream from Costco, which as far as I know we can distribute in the park, and we can certainly distribute it on the Civic Green. I don't think when we rented.
Yeah, I think the issue with the park was just having vendors, like people selling things.
Yeah, but if we as part of our event are handing out ice cream, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure we want to spend the money to be in the park rather than on the Civic Green. That's a separate debate.
You can't even do anything in the parks.
Yeah, that I wonder. I feel like we're kind of crossing a few wires here, because it actually it does sound like a really interesting idea if we had a neighbor close to the park who would be willing to let a food truck park there temporarily for a food truck night. But that just seems like a lot for one person in terms of a load to bear. And if people liked it and became regular, then it kind of sets up a weird dynamic for that person where they kind of feel like they're supporting like someone's business. And if they're a social bee in the center of the neighborhood, maybe they'll like that. But what if it, I don't know, what if their house gets trashed or their yard gets trashed? I don't know. I guess I'm not clear, but Andrea, it sounds like Andrea actually, Andrea came to the last meeting to talk about food truck night. And Andrea, it sounds like you had looked further into using parks, and it sounds like it's not, that like they don't allow that.
You're on mute. Andrea is still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that you could do them at regional parks, but you can't do them at local parks. You're not supposed to do anything after dark. And you can't have a food truck at the local parks. So yeah, that's kind of not possible, unfortunately. But then, it's interesting because I know other neighborhoods that are able to do it at their parks, but I don't know how they manage that considering you're not allowed to. And I don't know how Garrett Park does it. Like if they just park at a cul-de-sac or at an end of the street that's not bothering anyone. So yeah, I mean, I understand, I get it, like parking a food truck and someone in front of someone's house, it kind of makes them responsible for, and then there's like a lot of commotion. To be honest, I would totally be happy doing that in front of our house, but I haven't figured out. I think I actually just want to talk to a couple more people who have food trucks, because when I asked them about permits of where they could park on the street, they didn't seem to be concerned about that at all. But I've only talked to 2 people, so I don't know. I'm not giving up, but I do see that it's like, because you can't do it at parks, which would be ideal. You have to kind of find a spot on a street that is accessible for people and doesn't inconvenience anyone.
Might the gentleman up by Bolingbrook Shopping Center, would he be able to give guidance on if there's permits or anything that they need, since he's got a food truck?
He pays Alan for that.
Oh, I know he does that, but I thought maybe before he was there, that maybe he was someplace else.
Possibly.
Yeah, they have a license. If I understand it correctly, like we had looked at a little bit into it when there was a food truck being run out of a house at Schuylkill for a few days. My understanding is that Mario is the manager of that food truck, and they have a license that makes them it's legal for them to still move around, even though a lot of the times they're not. And so they are an option. And like when Game Gym opened, like they parked their food truck up there and they kind of moved it around. And I know when Dynamite had like a Halloween party, like Mario pulled the food truck around there too. So they're an option as well, especially if we were going to have some kind of event. But I think probably I don't want to spend too much more time on this. I think probably we need a little bit more information about what Nell's idea was, so we can kind of get from there, move on from there, I should say.
And I did take some notes for her, and the only thing I know from this is she specifically said regarding Community Day.
Okay.
So,
yeah, that's 6 months away if we're, and that assumes that it's legal to do so in 6 months. I hope so, but. I'm going to switch the next two agenda items because Andy, you're actually going to have a few agenda items in a row. So I wanted to put a plug in for RCA elections. We have been late the last 2 years, and I'm very motivated to hold them on time this year. So I believe that we need to publish a slate of candidates in May. Is that, can I have a parliamentarian who's experienced in RCA elections confirm that we typically do the slate of candidates in May and then we have an election in June?
Sounds correct to me, because we always used to discuss it in an RCA meeting, and then it would go into the next echo, which is the last echo, right? The June echo.
Yeah, that sounds right to me too. I think it's easiest to do is what I know I always am doing, still going back to the Echo archive and going back to like the May Echo. It's like, oh yeah, there's the slate, and yeah, that's when we did it. And but that sounds about right, because it's usually around the last, one of the last general meetings before the summer break that we have the elections. I know we've never. Last year, I think we did it at the same time as the RCF, but in the past, I don't think we've usually done it before that.
Well, since the next meeting is a general meeting, correct? We should probably call for nominations in the March echo, that we would hear them in April. Right. So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, thinking about just what you were just talking about. Yeah, I think potentially this echo would be the call for the slate of candidates. Tifford's been done this around the block a few times too. So
he left.
He left.
Sorry, I was muted. No, that is correct.
Yeah. That's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, I think number one.
What?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. I was gonna say that number one, if anyone here decides that they would like to be nominated, they can email info@randolphcivic.org. But yes, two, we should put it into this month's echo that if anyone is interested, we'll call for candidates, and then, just so we can do it on time. I know we've been a little late the last 2 years. Okay.
I think we should put in the list of those positions that are available so that people are aware. Like,
Yeah.
I think the treasurer is up. I think I'm on my 3rd year. I'm happy to do it again for the next 3, but again, I can't remember the list exactly, but we should post it.
And anyone who wants to be treasurer should know that that's probably the most rigorous job in the RCA.
It does
Yes,
take some
it
time.
is.
It's a little consuming. Again, I'm happy to do it for another 3 years, but then I will be forced to do something else.
You're great at it, Colby. Okay, thank you so much. But that's a good point that we also need to note the sort of quote availability of board positions. Excuse me. And I also think it'd be helpful for us to. I actually don't know. Do we have an election if someone wants to be a committee chair?
I don't think so. I think we take volunteers for this. That's how we've done it in the past.
Okay, so maybe we can also take volunteer for a committee chair. I think it'd be really nice to try to fill. I mean, like a great example is education. You know, like these kinds of issues have popped up and being discussed about Veersmill, and there's a lot going on in MCPS in general right now. And I think maybe I'm just thinking selfishly because we have kids going into the school system, but I do think that having as many committee chairs filled as possible would be helpful.
I know like Ken was looking for someone to replace him, so I happened to be at the meeting, so I volunteered. So that's how I became the safety chair. I would emphasize that for the education chair, it probably should be someone who is familiar with the school system, who's had a child or currently has a child. Because I've been to some of the meetings and maybe wrote an article, but unfortunately, I don't have kids in the education system. So sometimes I'm at a loss. You know, I get confused by the total. So it might, if I don't know if we should put something in the echo saying, hey, if you are interested in being in the education chair, there's an opening. But it might be helpful too to make sure they know or have a child in the education, one of the schools here. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think in an ideal world, they would be associated with a PTA within our cluster, whether it's Veersmill or Loiterman or one of the other middle schools or even Wheaton. Like I think having a connection with PTA would be ideal. So
it might also be an idea to suggest to have a co-chair on this particular committee, you know, an experienced parent who's already in, and then someone who's coming in new, so that we, you know, for the reasons that you mentioned.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Buddy system. I like it. Okay, so Andy, we have several items that are for RCF. So one of them is news. Another is the main neighborhood sign beautification process. And then also part of the old business about walkability. So I'll sort of yield the floor to you and let you talk about anything related to RCF that you wanted to discuss.
Okay. The first item on that, she wanted me to let you know that Randolph Civic Foundation is now revived and in good standing. There had been forfeiture due to lack of tax filing, and it's all been rectified. So I know everybody, yeah.
Oh, that sounds familiar, Brian.
It was a big yay on that.
I was about to say the same thing, Mara.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks.
Yeah. It took us a lot. It's amazing that I'm glad they got it resolved. I think it took us a lot longer to get resolved.
It was a big doing.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
Gotta always remember to file those forms.
I don't. Yeah. And she also wanted to know that we have paid, RCF has paid $500 to the RCA, and it was done online on the 1st of March.
Oh, cool. Thank you for that. I was talking to Nell about that earlier, so great.
And I'm trying to see what's up for her. Next was Community Day. For the neighborhood beautification efforts, Chris Fonts at Division of Highway Services has granted us permission to paint the guardrail behind the main sign at Garrett Park and Schuylkill, which is apparent. I haven't been back there since we planted a lot of things about a year and a half ago, and it was looking a little sad back then. And she said she will post the day that it is to be done. And if anyone is good with a sprayer for paint, a paint sprayer that wants to join us for the guardrail painting blitz, that would be wonderful. And I had asked her about apparently they're thinking it has to probably be primed, and then she wanted to do it in brown paint so that it matches the guardrails that are over on Garrett Park over by the bridge, and so everything's all linked in. And the pedestrian safety part of it is that the efforts for that would be enhanced by us doing a walk audit. And she's foresees it being a group effort where we take a couple of hours and access the neighborhood walkability status and submit results of it. So I'm not sure if she had in mind like a couple of different groups doing different areas of it, or if, doing it en masse.
Yeah, the walk audit, I actually can't remember who brought it up or who invented this concept, if it came from Glass or anyway, it's something that came up, and there was a social media blitz from some of the Montgomery County agencies. And I combined this with a project that we're kind of working on right now. And we've sort of like wrapped up our initial take of trying to get more striped crosswalks in our neighborhood. And so I guess the one question that I have is at this point, like we've gotten input from our board, we've put a few next door posts up and got input from residents, and we talked about it at a few meetings. So all that, and I'm supposed to be the one who does this, and I haven't. But we have a list of crosswalks that we'd like to prioritize, and I guess it could be nice to sort of like verify them during a walk audit and make sure that our list is right. And so, do you have any sense about when we're going to do it? Is this sort of like hopefully an early spring activity?
She didn't have anything on here regarding that. Yeah, and she said definitely, like, if there's things I don't know, that we can refer back to her. So I'm taking lots of notes.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe we can try to find a time. We really wanted to try to wrap up the crosswalk, at least the first stage of the project, sooner rather than later. So maybe we can try to do that over the next, I don't know, 4 weeks or something. But okay.
And the weather would be, and it's a good time of year to do it. The weather's still nice and pleasant and not too hot, not too cold.
Yeah.
Coming up. And the only other thing I've got on here is she had for a future potential guest speakers at RCA meetings on the topic of pedestrian safety could include Miriam Schonenbaum from Action Committee for Transit. That might be a good speaker, or Eli Glacier at Montgomery Parks and Planning. So she was thinking, that would tie into that.
Okay. I can connect with Nell. In the time of Zoom, having guest speakers has become a lot simpler. And so it's so much easier to get someone to come talk to us. Okay. Well, thank you. Is that all you had, Andy?
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next item was brought up at our February executive meeting. And I've gone down the rabbit hole of the Montgomery County government bureaucracy about, it says basketball hoops, but I mean basketball hoop nets. And so Maddie, who's a new resident, brought it up like, hey, can we get nets back on our basketball hoops? And I thought that putting nets up would be kind of a simple thing. And the short version of the story is that it's illegal to play basketball outside in Montgomery County still. The long version of the story is that I reached out to Parks and I said, hey, can we get basketball nets up? And if not, why? And, it kind of took a lot of cajoling to finally understand the basis of this. But effectively, basketball has been classified as a high-risk activity. And I would just like to clarify that the RCA at no point suggested that there should be full court basketball being played anywhere right now. What we're suggesting is that, basketball is a very accessible sport to people, and that, members of one household could go shoot hoops together. And, that doesn't seem very dangerous to me. And I'm not an infectious disease doctor, but so the problem is that the way that the executive order is written is that it effectively adopts what's called the Maryland Sports Commission's report that they put out as part of COVID-19. And basketball isn't really broken down in the same way that other sports are, which is kind of frustrating. So like soccer is broken down in a way that like low risk is doing like a drill by yourself or drills with the members of the same family, which theoretically could be done with a basketball as well. But because of the way that that report is written and how it's incorporated by reference into Elrich's current executive order, there's not even anything that the county council can do without Elrich first proposing a change. And so we started off with parks. We weren't really getting anywhere, and so we escalated it to council member Navarro's office, and we were able to get a determination that it is really the legal basis for basketball courts being closed, despite not actually being closed, is a current executive order. And so I'm certainly willing to escalate this to County Executive Elrich to just say, look, can we have some like common sense use of basketball courts by responsible members of one household, because it's not really that different from a playground where people need to still exercise personal responsibility, and sort of separate the full court 5-on-5 basketball games from one or two kids that are brother and sister or whatever playing basketball by themselves. Does anyone have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, Josh, I'm supportive of, at least bringing it to Elrich's attention that still, it seemed like a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, again, we can make the, why didn't they remove all the goalposts, or why didn't they remove all the playground equipment? It's like, why did they just remove the rims from all the basketball hoops? And I understood it when they first did it, I guess, because I think there were some people that were just ignoring the rules, and they reacted one way, but here we are a year later, and is it still appropriate? And then at the same time, when we were doing this, they opened up indoor basketball to coached sessions, so it's like, hold on, you coached indoor basketball is fine, but like outdoor is still illegal. But again, what they did though, is they didn't change the, we're at level 3 or whatever, right? They just keep adding more stuff that can be allowed under level 3. So what we kept getting from parks is that, we're not allowed to open basketball, of course, so we're like level 2. And I don't think we're ever going to leave level 3. It's just going to be continuously allowing more things under level 3. And so I think it's at least worth, a letter saying, I think it's time to consider that we should have basketball hoops, start putting them back up.
Well, the other thing too, Brian, is that they're not consistent, because if they're saying Montgomery County or even Maryland, that is not happening, because just next to my mother's house, which is, it's only 3 blocks from the DC border, but it's in Montgomery County, near Friendship Heights, those basketball nets and hoops have been up the entire time. They have never taken it down, because there's a park right next to it, and we take our kids there every few weeks, and they've been playing basketball there. Now it's, again, it's 3-on-3, or 2-on-2, or 1. I mean, it's only a couple of guys. It's not many. It's not an entire Globetrotters, thing, but it's basketball, right? And they're playing hoops. They're shooting around. So it's just not consistent.
They're right. There's a number of courts around that still have their hoops. It's just ours is one of the ones that doesn't. Like the one right on Garrett Park Road still has its hoops too.
Are you sure about that? Because you're talking about the one like right across from the Veersmill Rec Center?
Yeah, that still has hoops. Nobody goes there because it's terrible, but that one still has its hoops.
I thought I did look at that. I mean, it was from a distance, and I thought they were taken down. But if you say
the one, and also the one that burns the most is that in Garrett Park, Waverly Park basketball court, which is a MNC PPC basketball court, does still have its hoops. And there are kids playing basketball at it pretty much every day.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Okay, sounds good. So we can, not hearing any opposition, we can escalate it to Elrich and hopefully, I think the other frustrating thing about this is we're currently in like the phase 2 reopening for parks, and they're like, we're not gonna have a phase 3 plan until phase 3 starts, which is a really confusing concept because how are they going to be ready if they don't have a plan? But that's all I'll say about that. Matt, the next agenda item was yours, and it's the vacant house in the 11300 block of Schuylkill Road.
Yeah, let's see. It was is our, well, the neighbor who asked me to put that on the agenda doesn't seem to be here. So I'll just the short version is that the house it was bought by someone who's going to be, I guess, flipping it, and they've been they haven't done a good job of cleaning up the property. This was a neighbor who was complaining about how they were tossing all the construction debris in the yard, and then so but she's not here tonight, so I'm not. I thought she was going to have more information for us as to what's going on there. That's all I have from her so far, is that that there's they're not being real clean about it.
Okay.
So I think we could.
I might offer one suggestion, Matt, and that would be she could contact the building department. If they've pulled building permits, somebody goes by there for inspections at some point. It may be under their jurisdiction that the site has to be kept clean.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some. I mean, there are definitely some regulations there. We'll see. We'll see what she comes up with.
Okay.
Okay. The next agenda item is mine, and I'm gonna admit that I dropped the ball on social media outreach. I think the one thing is that I don't really have a picture, and I think that we can do maybe one last push for membership in this echo, and then kind of call it quits. But if someone has, I think that I've seen somewhere like a join the RCA now sign that we have as a picture. If someone has that, we can do a small little social media blitz and see if we can get a little bit more membership before we conclude.
We could also put up the banners. I mean, if we want to get into that.
Yeah, I don't know historically when we've just said like the membership drive needs to end by X date. I mean, certainly 2020 to 2021 has been a heck of a year, might be an understatement. So, it can certainly go on a little bit longer than we'd intend. But I do think at some point it needs to end, because starting in September, we're going to be talking about membership again.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty much died off at this point, the donations. I mean, I got one for, just one today, but again, it's kind of onesie twosies at this point anyway. So there may be, I'll hit the mailbox tomorrow. There may be a few more, but I don't expect more than, say, a handful, 4 or 5, maybe.
Josh, did you do an email blast?
No, because to be honest with you, there hasn't been much to talk about, but we can do an email blast just for membership, I think. And we can, I'm just trying to think about other things that we could announce through there. We try to do these blasts not very often, and I've been waiting for the perfect moment, and to be honest with you, that moment just never arrived. But we can certainly do one for membership to see if we, shake any leaves loose.
Yeah.
Maybe the nature walk.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. And even we could talk about the aftercare bidding process, and just, sort of we're trying to get information about, if you're okay with the current process, or if you'd like to be more involved. We we could find a few things to put in there. So I can put that on my list to do in the next few days, because if we don't do it soon, it's gonna it'll lose its utility. All right, so the last agenda item is really brief, but you know, it's an issue near and dear to my heart because it's like 5 or 6 houses down. But they started construction on the house in, you know, the 11400 block of Ashley that exploded, and you know, tractors they sort of like marked the borders about a week or two ago, and they had tractors there today, and so I'm at least personally excited. I know the next few months are going to be really disruptive for you know, a few blocks around, but there will be a new house there at some point in the future.
Yeah, you can talk to Andre and I about disruption.
That's right. Yeah, sorry. I don't mean to be insensitive about what you guys have been going through. You're certainly right that your neck of the woods is very active in the construction department.
But soon they'll be done here and it'll move over to Brian's, so that's good.
I know you can't look over at Andre anymore soon.
Yeah, no, we've got a few more weeks probably before they build the houses, but
Yeah.
our holler to communicate will be over.
Okay. So we don't have any meeting minutes to approve because we had a just-in-time Echo publication the night of our February executive meeting, and so we approved those meeting minutes right then and there. I'm going to move to the treasurer's report.
Not too much to report since the last time. You know, we're still a little bit behind, but again, I think it's, you know, if we're not going to do Community Day and some of the other activities that we normally do, then we'll still actually be in the green. So we'll just have to sort of see how it goes this year and what activities may need to be funded. But again, with, you know, it'll be cutting it close, I think, obviously, because the majority of our money goes towards the Echo, of course. So we still have a few more Echoes to pay for. But, you know, I don't think we're going to be too much in the red if we do go into the red. So it's been a relatively light year for funding, but that makes sense with what's going on all over, not only the community, but the country. So I think we're in pretty good shape financially. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about, you know, our funding or anything like that. I haven't had time to write any treasurer articles, but I have one midterm, one final, and one paper, and I am done. And then I can get back to life as normal, show up to meetings, and write articles. So,
Toga.
Yeah, I was thinking about having a few beers.
Yeah, no doubt. I think about having it most every night.
Christiana, we have one-track minds, huh? I know you were thinking about a party too, but.
And we'll be moving back into the neighborhood with our house mostly remodeled in 2.5 weeks. So very excited. Yay, we're never leaving, yay.
Okay, so now we're on to committee reports. Public safety, Diane?
Okay, so there was some chatter on Nextdoor about the vandalism, car vandalism. Then it was taken down. So what I'm doing now, just to let you know my process, I'm actually going to the Montgomery County website, looking at the police reports, because they do weekly reports of things that are going on in the area. Not that I don't trust Nextdoor, but sometimes there's threads on Nextdoor and then it turns out not to be accurate. So the things that I did find that I'm a little concerned about, there was 2 attempted carjackings, one at the Target and one at the Giant, that happened at the end of January, but didn't get reported until after the February meeting. So no one was hurt. but the suspect is still at large. So they believe it's committed by the same suspects. There's 2 thefts from vehicles that occurred on the 12,000 block of Parkland Drive. Again, that happened this happens near commercial businesses, not technically speaking in Randolph Hills, but people in Randolph Hills, of course, go to those businesses. We shop at the Giant, we shop at Target. So those are things to be concerned about. In particular, I was concerned about the Target because it was at 5 p.m. at night. Now, it was a little darker than maybe, but that's just something to be concerned about because no one was actually carjacked. It was just an attempted carjacking. Again, young youths too involved. Hello? Someone talking? Did someone have a question? Okay. All right. So, and also, basically a theft from vehicle occurred at the 5900 block of Montrose Road, again, in the afternoon. Again, a commercial business, not technically speaking in our neighborhood, but these are close by and we all go shopping. So it's just, don't be very careful when you do park your car at the grocery store, at the Target, anywhere where there's a commercial business, because we use the local businesses. That's the biggest thing when I look at the police reports on Montgomery County online, so forth. Also, so lock your cars. They always say that, lock your car doors. Now, Nell also put some things, and she actually text messaged me regarding apparently a very sense, and I'll call her back, but she wanted to, apparently she's going to have someone come through and do a walk audit in the neighborhood, Eli Glasser, but she also mentioned another police officer's name she had talked to because there was a reckless driver going through the neighborhood that she captured. So I'll talk to her about that. I don't mind talking to another. I usually talk to Dana Stroman, she's the liaison that we have, and go to at the Zoom meetings we have with the Bethesda Police, the 2nd District. But I certainly don't mind talking to another police officer. But I think, is it in the past, RCA has always kind of gone to one liaison, correct? For people who've been on the board longer than I have, I mean, we don't go through multiple channels, or is it that, I mean, or does it matter?
I don't know that it matters. I mean, usually it's easier to go through one person, but
okay. I mean, I'm totally fine with, like, if there's another police officer who's really going to be involved and help out in it, because I can get a hold of Dana Stroman, but sometimes I leave a message, she calls me back. Sometimes I have to contact her multiple times, so it's she's busy just like any other. So it's just something to consider. So okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the process was. Like my initial take on inviting a specific police officer that responded to a call is that my guess is that the police department has liaisons for a reason, so that community outreach is centralized, and my guess is that Officer Stroman has special training to talk to civic associations and such.
Yes, and we've had her before. I think she's talked to our RCA at least twice, maybe 3 times in the past. Now, I find that she's very knowledgeable, but of course, if the incident happens, she's not necessarily the officer on scene. She has to talk to them first. I'm still waiting for a report for the weapons discharge that happened a block away from my house that we're still not too sure whether or not it was a weapons discharge. So I think that's one of the reasons why the report's delayed. It's like they're still investigating because it's, someone said it was a drive-by shooting, but it got downplayed to, okay, weapons discharge, but there's still no evidence of a weapon being actually discharged. So it's like, so it's one of those things. And so that's kind of what happens on Nextdoor sometimes. So not that I'm not looking at Nextdoor, I am, and I'm reading Bethesda Beat, but I'm going to the Montgomery County website, and week by week they do reports by district and then by block, or what they call beat. And so I'm kind of looking at that. And so that's, I find, is more helpful. I think it's because it's a little bit more accurate. So, but anybody can do that, but that's what I find. And so I'll talk to Dana Stroman about the other incidences happened at like the Giant and Target, I'll probably just reach out to her to see if there's any more information on that. Because I was a little concerned about those because those are where we go shopping, but not necessarily in the neighborhood. Though there was that one vandalism apparently that happened on next door, but I couldn't find a police report on that. So I don't know how accurate that is. That was on next door and then it was taken down for some reason. So
Yeah. It was taken down from, I'm one of the leads, and Clifford is as well on Nextdoor. And those posts were removed because the person who posted them put very specific details about a suspect's address.
I saw that on Slack, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so that's why, leads in the area removed some of the posts, even though some of the other posts that were less descriptive stayed up. And
Okay.
so,
Mhm.
I mean, I do know that the police visited a house, on a street in our neighborhood with respect to vandalism.
Mhm.
But, whether that individual is actually a suspect right now is the way that I heard about it, it was very unclear.
Okay.
And it seemed like that person had an alibi that was pretty solid, but
Yeah, I saw that on Slack. I saw that.
Okay.
So by the time I was like, okay, so but I went through the police. Now, of course, there's always a delay in timing to the Montgomery County reports. It might be, a week or two later by the dates, but it doesn't post. And that's probably because they're still going through their police reports and checking on things before they put anything on there. And they might put a block, but they're not going to put a specific address.
Yeah.
Until, instance. But they will say if someone's they will say if there's a suspect, they will give a description of that. They will say if someone's been arrested. So the good news, Montgomery County Mall, there's been some incidences there too. So if you go shopping at Montgomery County Mall, be very careful when you lock your car doors, and just be careful around that area. Unfortunately, there has been some incidences in that areas too. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, I'm disappointed that there's no information about the weapons discharge or alleged
No,
weapons discharge.
And I actually communicated with her. Dana Stroman left a voicemail message, a couple emails, and she said she's going to reach out to the officer in charge. And I'm wondering if it's just something that it's just they just don't have any evidence of it, or just again, when it's still a pending investigation, they're hesitant about giving out details too. So that's the other issue. So,
Christiana, that wasn't you with the cherry bomb, was it?
Could have been.
Christiana and Bob were
Attempted.
partying at 3 a.m.
That's right.
Intersection.
Speaking of
setting off
partying.
fireworks.
Go ahead.
Bob has something about we have a real partying issue on the block of the 11800 block Ashley Drive. So in the minutes, that's all you can say.
It's not
Every terrible, as soon as it
month.
gets a bit warmer, and we already had one Saturday, they're having Party Central, and it is so noisy. And Kaylee, who was here on the call earlier, I think she lives like 1 or 2 houses away from there. She's one of the biggest suffering neighbors, and so are we. And Gail and Nell, we have started an informal texting between us that we all call the police non-emergency number, because it goes till by 11 o'clock, they really get going at night, and then it goes till 2 a.m. Just so much music. And the whole backyard is now a gigantic, like triple car garage with fire pit and loudspeakers. And
bright lights.
All spring, summer, fall, it goes on until it gets cold. And we have that every Saturday night.
So even during COVID, they were having people over?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because I thought with COVID, you're not supposed to have more than.
I think with the alcohol that gets consumed, the COVID has no chance.
Yeah, but I think there's still a law against it. So, okay, I'm just surprised that between calling the non-emergency number and so forth, the police are like, okay, because I thought with COVID they could just
Well,
not
Being
arrest
on-
people, but fine at least.
Being on the park and sometimes in the neighborhood, we don't use air conditioning very much, so we like to have the windows open. And so once in a while, someone would have something up pretty loud, and I'm working in my study, or Christian is trying to do some things. And I've always gone to the source and made that, even to the tennis players on the court, our tennis courts in the back and the park. When I go down, everybody usually says, "Oh, I didn't realize it was that loud," or "Didn't," and they turn it down. And I went to this location after several months and mentioned to them. Now, this was an afternoon now, not the evening, and mentioned to him, walked up to him and walked into the backyard. He had a fence, but the gates were open. So I said, really want to ask you, would you, as a neighbor, to keep your sound down? And he said, "Oh, can't you hear it?" And he turned it up beyond what he had it playing. Rather tall man and physically in good condition compared to the old guy that you're talking to, or that's talking to you. And so I neglected to say, well, if you'll keep your music off my property, I'll keep my feet off your property. Because he threatened to call the police and if I didn't get my feet off his property. And I said, well, it's going to go. So it was not a good, I tried to speak English. He spoke belligerence instead. So.
What's the address again, Christiana, Bob?
It's 11801 Ashley Drive.
I don't think it's 01.
I went
01.
Yeah, Ashley Drive.
So this meeting is recorded. I just wanted to flag that so we can, Tiffer, do you mind maybe, I don't know how we should wash that, or
I can trim that out.
Okay.
Good, thank you, Matt. I didn't even realize that. So.
Sorry.
Because we could be at risk.
For quality assurance.
Yes. How many times would you say do you think you've called the neighbors have called the police on this particular house?
More than 24 times over this past
Wow.
year.
See, that would seem like they should be able to escalate this at this point. Yeah. I would think maybe the first if it happens again in the spring coming up here, we should use that. Boom, just escalate it immediately.
Yeah, I mean, we call the number, I have it on my speed dial, and we call at 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night and speak to the dispatcher, and she's very nice. I mean, this is a non-emergency number.
Man or woman.
But nothing follows, and they basically humor us and say, "Oh, well, call us back in an hour if it's still bad." But, we'd
we
like
want to go to bed.
Yeah, we don't want this afternoon.
How about so then next time this happens, call the police, report it and everything as you normally do, but then go on Slack and let the board know about it so that we can see about escalating.
And also say,
we need help. Yeah.
And also say if it looks like there's 25 people or more reported as a COVID violation.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was surprised at. Wouldn't that be a COVID violation this past year?
Well, we figured they're all family and friends. That didn't even enter our minds, so we didn't think about that.
Yeah, they busted people having big parties. I mean, most of them are hundreds of people, but still, the law is the law.
Mm-hmm.
Have the police ever actually came and responded to the situation? You're on mute, Bob.
I'm sorry. I did not know. We're still muted.
We're fine.
No,
Okay.
we can hear you.
Oh yeah, I see. Okay. I don't know for certain. They always offer to stop by after they've been here, when I'm on the phone with them before they come out. And a couple of times it quieted down pretty soon after I called. And I don't know whether Nels called as well, and some other folks on the block all around them, I guess, have called as well. So I don't know what the story is or what this is all about with him.
Yeah, I think
it's
that'll
really
help.
it's disturbing. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it'll help. It'll help, like when we escalate this, because for me, I wasn't 100% clear if it's the police are just not coming, or if they're coming and then the cops go away and then 5 minutes later it's party on, Garth.
In the beginning, that did happen. Yeah, we didn't see the police, but it did go down and then it came back again and continued.
Yeah, I would say probably twice or three times we saw then in the middle of the night the flashing lights coming down Ashley, and so they did come. So it was a variety of things, and then sometimes it stayed quiet, and other times it ratcheted up again. So it was a range. Happy spring! Yeah.
The idea of a party sounds so nice right now. Except for one that keeps, my neighbors up, but just didn't.
Yeah, thank you, Josh.
Okay, so then our last item is, I don't know, Matt, if you have anything for our environment committee.
Just one little thing. Apparently there's a movement afoot in Garrett Park to try to do something about the train noise. In particular, it's not the quiet zone thing that they were trying to do a few years back. In this case, I guess there's one engineer who, whenever he comes through, is just excessive. And I know exactly who they're talking about. And it's usually pretty late at night. But there's one of these people who they just lay on the horn. Oh, like it goes on and on and on. It's ridiculous. So they're trying to do something about it. But that's all I know.
Okay. Well, I saw that on Nextdoor. I didn't realize that it was a movement. I just thought it was, let's just call it Nextdoor.
Apparently, there's in Garrett Park, they're getting pretty serious about it, but we'll see. Sometimes these things peter out.
Yeah,
it's another issue that comes up every few years as long as I live here. So,
But hey, let's wish them luck. If they can even fix that one small thing, more power to them.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all that we had. We have maybe just another minute or two if there's a burning issue that someone wants to raise. With that, I am going to propose that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All right. Well, I'm not even going to call for a vote. Let's have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Take care.